tropical trees.
Which ones?
Oh, well, let's see. I've got Achachairu and Jaboticaba, and I've got Sapodilla. I've got bananas. I've got cherimoya. I've got white sapote, and odds and ends, you know.
So we'll have to compare some notes. I have a yellow jaboticaba, it still hasn't fruited. I have a white, red that has fruited, the blue that's so-so, and a standard. And Chico, I grafted a couple Chicos. Those are tricky to graft, but got some to work. Well, welcome.
I think mostly I've got these as seedlings.
We'll have plenty to graft then. We've got.
I'm Daniel. I live maybe about 2 blocks from here. Ben told me this was happening today, so he dragged me along. Only because he grows a bunch of stuff and I'm always asking him for advice. And I try to grow stuff and it never grows. But I do have trees in my backyard, such as figs, apples, orange, tangelo, pomegranate, plums, and whatever sticks, nopales, you know, pumpkins, all that stuff.
Welcome. So welcome everyone. I was new. All right, we got another new member.
So far, I've only propagated succulents. So I'm hoping to learn something new. And I was looking for tropical trees, and Laura was very helpful. And so I'm here. Thank you.
Well, welcome. Well, today, everyone, and for the new folks as well, we have a door drawing, not a raffle, it's a drawing of several items. So make sure you checked in with Laura and Sally in the back. Because there are some neat things that are there, including a tiger panache fig. If you win it, I have a panache fig. They taste phenomenal. There's something tricky about that one. So when you grow it, there's a couple things you may want to pay attention to on that one if you want to maintain the stripes with it. And I also wanted to take a moment to announce that to keep an eye on the newsletter, because we're going to have some more field trips coming up. And without further ado, I wanted to ask, do we have any board members with any business? Is it hanging over the wall? Yeah. So we don't have to bring our shears in the middle of the night. Do we have any board members to make any announcements? I have 2 announcements. One is Joan Day has a friend who is moving. This friend has several large avocado seedlings, some of which have fruited, and they are in pots, but it looks like they have a trunk that is maybe a good 3 or 4 inches in diameter. They have been in pots for years. That person is looking to move over the next couple months. So if you are interested in large caliber avocado seedlings that could be used as rootstock, or if you want to maintain them because they're fruiting, please talk with Joan Day. And I think that's it. Oh, and also we have some plants, not just in the drawing, but we also have some plants for sale. So if you wanted to take a peek, Laura is back there, and the plants are listed and the prices are listed as well. And those are for the club. Is that right, Laura? So the proceeds go back to the club as well. So without further ado, I'll turn this over to Jeff.
All right, well, before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to have Charlie come up for a second and let us know how the fair went. He put a lot of work into this, so I think we should hear his take on it.
We had about 138 spots. I think 47 people signed up. So if you worked at the booth or part of the fair, would you raise your hand or stand up, whichever you prefer? So a lot of people here worked multiple shifts at the booth. I really appreciate Martha, Laura, other people, Denny, Julie, Nohad especially, because they stored fruit for us while, Melissa's delivered way more than we could put in our booth at a time. So these folks had refrigerators. Now she's not here tonight, but I really want to mention Pam Tossi. If you saw displays that had a QR code, she is the one who did the research. She printed the QR codes. We pointed a lot of the fruits to CRFG.org's Fruit Facts, which is something I hope we see going forward. I am also wanting to get a hold of the people at CRFG to see how many hits, if they do a hit count. But all in all, it was quite a success. I understand Paul is a member mostly because he was invited to work his shift. We made a real push to get new members, so I'm hoping that that occurs. I think it was very successful. The people at Garden and Floral were really helpful to us. So I think it was a very good run at the fair.
Thank you, Charlie. And I can tell you, it's a lot of fun to volunteer at the booth. So anybody who didn't do it, you really want to try it next year because it's really a great time. So tonight we have a special speaker, our very own Martha Haber. She's going to tell us about her take on composting and how she gets materials to compost. Now, Martha's been a member since 2020. She's been on the board since 2022, was it? Oh, no, 2000, right? Okay, 2000, 2002. Yeah, it took 20 years away from me, sorry. She had a lot of different spots on the board. She started off as the membership chairman, then she became the chair, the treasurer, and now she's the secretary. And she's also created our propagation committee, which has been so successful in providing plants for our sale, as well as giving us a place to go and learn how to graft and do other types of propagation. So come on up, Martha. You want the headset or you want to use the mic?
No, I'll use this. Thank you. First of all, I want to say this is not a big fancy PowerPoint presentation. My skills are minimal, and I don't have lots of fancy pictures. And it's not going to be a talk to tell you how to compost, because I'm sure you all know as much as I do about browns and greens and how to mix and how to turn. And this is just going to be to tell you where I find a lot of materials for composting. And they're all free. They're in my community. And as I said, they're all free. I really take it as a personal challenge to find things that I can compost that don't cost me any money. So the first thing I want to say is to just remind you that start with what you have at your house. Any brush that you cut back, or your grass clippings, any of your yard waste, any of your kitchen waste, that can all be composted. Shredded paper can be composted. If you have a chipper shredder, that makes great material and can all be composted. So you want to use what you have. Maybe you don't have a lawn anymore, but you have a next door neighbor or a neighbor that has a big lawn and would be willing to give you the grass clippings. If you have a tree that is deciduous and drops leaves all year long or in the fall, those make great compost. I have seen posts on Nextdoor. I saw one a few weeks ago where a lady posted and she said, I'm about to clean up my backyard. I expect to have 5 bags, and these would be the big trash bags, of leaves. Is anybody interested? And I just jumped on that post as fast as I could, and I didn't get them because somebody beat me to it. So people out there are interested in composting, and they are interested in finding materials like I am. The street that dead ends into my house is lined with pine trees. And I've been in that house for almost 50 years. And they were there when I got there, and they're 50 years bigger. So every fall during the first Santa Ana winds that we get, these trees dump just mountains of pine needles, which are there for anybody to pick up. And it seems like nobody wants them but me. Last year, I kept telling myself, you have to go pick up your pine needles, and I kept putting it off until Wednesday night, about 11 o'clock, when I was starting to close things down. I realized that the next day was street sweeping day. And I thought, the street sweeper is going to come and take all my pine needles. So I grabbed my bags and I grabbed my rake and I raced down the street. And fortunately, nobody in the houses looked out to see this crazy lady with her rake raking up pine needles at 11 o'clock at night. But in about a half hour, I got 5 bags of pine needles, which I thought was pretty good. Another thing that you can do is you can grow some plants that make really good additions to your compost pile. One that I really like a lot is comfrey. I have lots and lots of comfrey plants at my house. And if anybody is interested in getting comfrey starts, let me know and I'll be happy to start some for you. Another one that I use a lot is tree collards, because they just get huge. They have great big leaves. They're in the brassica family. And there's something about brassicas that just seem to break down in the compost, and it really activates your compost pile. So I use the leaves that I don't eat off my tree collards, and they start really easily. So if anybody's interested in starts for tree collards, let me know. I was going to have a sign-up sheet and I forgot to put that, but talk to me after the meeting and I'll be sure to start some for you. The first thing that I go and gather in the neighborhood is juice pulp. 3 miles from my house is the Simply O. Move this. Oops. Simply O juice bar. The O stands for organic. They make their juices right from scratch on site, and they throw out 3 big trash bags of juice pulp every day. And I have a sample here you can look at. This is great for your compost pile because it's already ground up and it's ready to go, and it breaks down really quickly, and it helps other woody materials around it to break down. This would be considered your green, and it's all fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, and that they grind up. You can come up later and take a look at these. And all you have to do is call them up and say, I'd like a bag of your juice pulp, and they're happy to give it to you because they just throw it away into the big dumpster and it goes to the landfill. Our cities and municipalities are starting to be aware of the fact that we can't just continue to throw everything away. We have to start using it. The new legislation, SB 1383, establishes that we achieve a 75% reduction in the level of statewide disposal of organic waste. And composting is a great way to do this. And different municipalities and cities are getting on board with that. But if you can find places in your community that have materials and you can go and get them, they are happy to give them to you. Then they don't have to pay to give them away, to take them away and dispose of them. And it gives you something that will break down and you can use in your garden or around your trees that it just builds the soil in your yard. The next thing that I always check out is there's a Stables not too far from my house. I think it's about 2.1 miles. At the Lakewood Stables, I took a picture of this so you could see how much stuff they have for anybody to come and pick up. That's my car. And you can see there's a mountain. It's as big as my car. And it's there all the time. And people do come and take it, but they clean out their horse stables every day. And it's free. It's just waiting for somebody to come and pick it up. And this is a sample of it. They use a lot of wood shavings, which makes a nice brown layer in your compost. And of course, it's mixed with the manure and the horse urine. But again, it's all free. So that is an excellent, if you have in your neighborhood, if you have a petting zoo, if you have somebody who maybe rescues llamas or alpacas or has goats, the materials from these animals is a great addition to your compost pile, or they can be spread around your trees or around your garden beds to use as directly as fertilizer. The next thing that I really get excited about is brewery grains. There are microbreweries popping up everywhere. This is one that's just a mile and a half from my house. And I called them up to see if they would have any grains this week that I could pick up so I could show you. Where's that? Right here. And unfortunately, the brewer was at another location he was going to be brewing. So I just looked online. And here's another one, not much farther. And this one makes kosher beer. So I'm assuming that the grains that are left after he makes kosher beer, that the grains are also kosher. I don't know if that makes a difference when you are working with your plants, but if it's important to you to keep kosher, that might be something to check out. These grains, again, they're very small and they just are a great addition to your compost pile. They are available in copious amounts. When you call them up and say, are you going to have any grain that I could pick up? And they say, how much do you want? And I'll say, you know, my car will hold, I don't know, 6 buckets or 8 buckets or whatever. Oh yeah, they have plenty there. I used to be on a list for a brewery in Huntington Beach, and we would get notifications. And there were maybe 8 or 10 of us that would show up, and he'd be giving away 50 to 60 buckets of grain every time. Every time he brewed, and he still had bags and bags of it that he had to throw out. This stuff all goes to the landfill if you don't pick it up. Now, I will say at the Long Beach Beer Lab, I asked them what they do with, if they do anything with their grains. And he said, actually, he has a farmer from Chino that comes and picks it up. Excuse me. But I was welcome to come and take as much as I wanted, that there was still plenty for the farmer after that. So this is a sample of the brewery grains. It's a great addition to your compost pile, and you can also use it around your trees or around your beds directly as like a mulch layer. I'm sorry? Yes, they do. I'll talk about buckets later. The question was, are you supposed to bring your own buckets? And the answer is yes. So the buckets are to come. The next place that I go for free, whoops. For free things for my compost pile. I don't have a picture of. We all live in cities like Long Beach or Huntington Beach or Seal Beach or Newport Beach. The operative word being beach. One thing that comes to the beach constantly is seaweed. Seaweed makes an excellent addition to your compost pile. It can also be used directly on your beds, directly around your trees. Seaweed has between 60 and 70 trace elements and growth hormones that will be added to your garden. It's all free. You don't have to rinse the seaweed. If you want to, you can, but it's not necessary. It doesn't put a lot of salt onto your beds or around your plants. But it's a great addition to your compost pile. And as I say, you can put it directly on the soil. I have not had any problem. If I leave it in a bag and don't get it spread out right away, I will get pests that will come and get into it. I think raccoons maybe, or possums. But when I put it directly on the soil, I don't have any problem at all with rodents or pests. And then when I water my plants, every now and then I can smell a little bit of, it smells like the ocean, and I love it. A couple things to remember about seaweed. You probably cannot pick up seaweed from state beaches or federal beaches or protected areas. So if you are in an area like that, you would want to check with your lifeguards or any guides that might be there to see if there are any regulations. But a regular beach, you're free to take up to 10 pounds of wet seaweed a day, which really isn't very much because seaweed is quite heavy. So what I like to do is take a big trash bag and go down there. You might want to take a knife with you because sometimes they'll be in great big chunks and it's more than you can carry. And you really can't pull them apart because they're pretty strong. So you would want to cut them apart until you get it down to a size that you can handle. But I love the way it smells. It's a great addition to your garden and it's free. The next thing I would think about is wood chips. And I know there is an organization called Chip Drop that you can access online, and you can have them bring wood chips to your house and leave them. The thing I don't like about Chip Drop is, one, you can't just get a small amount. You have to take whatever they dump, and it's usually a big, huge truck full. Two, you really can't tell them, well, I need it on Tuesday afternoon, or I can't take it before Thursday, or they bring it when they bring it. And they're going to want to put it in your yard. I can't have it in my yard because I have no place to put it. I have a driveway that goes up. I have to park my car up there because that's where I charge it. And I can't have it blocked where I can't get into my driveway. So I need things on my street in front of my house. So I have there's an arborist that works in my neighborhood. And I can call him and I can say, Mario, if you have a small load, I could take a small load, like a half or a third of a load, and he'll come and he'll drop it in the street in front of my house. And it's a small enough amount that I can handle on my own. I could not handle a great gigantic mountain of wood chips, but a small amount I can take. And so if you see any arborists in your neighborhood cutting down trees, talk to them. Go and tell them what you need. A lot of times they may fill up their truck and take it off, and they have to pay wherever they take this usually. So they're gonna take their big load and then they're still finishing up the last bit of their job. And it only is a small portion of their truck. If you can take that off their hands, then they're able to start the next day with a completely empty truck, ready for their next job. So make friends with your arborists in your neighborhood. Coffee grounds. Coffee grounds are great in compost. It seems like there are coffee houses and coffee shops pretty much on every corner in the known world because they're just all over. They have to throw their coffee grounds out. They usually will have great big bags of them. Again, make friends with the people, go in and tell them what you want and be accommodating as to when you need it or how you can take it from them and establish a rapport with them. And I think they're happy to do it. Another place to think about in addition to coffee shops are donut shops. Donut shops go through a lot of coffee. And the one where I go to pick up coffee grounds, they save them in a bucket because they get a lot of buckets. So they're happy to give me a bucket full of coffee grounds, which makes it easy for me to carry and easy for them to get rid of. Straw is a great addition for composting. And a good time to be looking for straw would be in the fall of the year around Halloween, between Halloween and Christmas, when they are, putting up these lots and they have straw bales that they use for decorations. Also, a lot of people use them as decorations for their Halloween parties. If you see any haunted houses, you might check with them and see if they are going to have extra straw bales at the end. I will warn you, if you're going to put straw bales in your car, try to wrap them in something like a huge sheet or something, because straw gets into everything. And it sticks to the flooring in your car and it sticks to the lining of your trunk. It just is very hard to get rid of. So if you can wrap it in something, that makes it a lot easier on you in the future. But straw is an excellent addition. That makes a great mulch layer around your trees and in your garden, around your vegetables. If you have chickens, you all know that chicken coops are, that chickens make great materials from the bedding and the manure, and that can be composted, and it really serves as an activator for your compost because it's a nice hot compost. These are bags that I picked up at the rabbit rescue. I stopped in at the rabbit rescue and I said, how often do you clean your cages? And she said, well, 5 times a week. I said, great, could I come and pick up some of the materials once you have cleaned them? Absolutely. So I went there the next day and I picked up these 4 bags, which are next to my car, so you can kind of get an idea how big they are. That was all I could fit in my car. There must have been at least a dozen. All those were in the dumpster. They were just going to go to the landfill. And it's all free. It's available. Earthworm castings. Earthworms make a great manure source and a good activator for your compost. Usually people use earthworm castings directly on their beds rather than putting it in their compost, but it's an excellent addition to your garden. And it's a nice rich, makes for a nice rich layer. The next one that I learned about there is a company in Compton. I'll tell you a story that goes along with this. Many years ago, a young boy in Minnesota found mealworms in his mother's flour. And he was an avid young fisherman, really liked to fish. So he learned to raise these mealworms. And he used them for fish bait. And he made a little business out of it, and he sold it to fishermen. He was in Minnesota. There are land of 10,000 lakes, lots of fishermen in Minnesota. So he had this little business that he ran as a kid, and then as he grew older, fast forward a few years to 1956. The young boy is now grown up. His name was Fred, and he moves to California. And he starts a mealworm business out of the back of his car. And eventually he's successful. Eventually he starts it as an established business. And he establishes it in Compton, California, on Spruce Street in Compton. He's very successful. He grows mealworms. He grows all kinds of insects, crickets, and roaches and jumping whatevers. It's amazing how many places want to buy insects. There are zoos, and there are pet shops, and there are aquariums, and there are individual people who raise lizards, and so it's a very successful business. To this day, Rainbow Mealworms still operates out of Compton, California, still on Spruce Street, and it's the biggest insect growing company in the world. And of course, they grow a lot of mealworms as well as all these other animals, insects. And like every animal that eats, it poops. And so you end up with what's called insect frass. And that bag that was in the previous picture, I picked up, I think 3 of those when I went a month or so ago. It's free, 40 pounds of insect frass. And they put those out about once a month. They'll post them on Craigslist. It's Craigslist under the Long Beach heading, LA, and then Long Beach, and then free. And they'll put out several pallets of these things. You are limited to 20 bags. Don't take any more than 20. So I have a sample up here. You can see what it's like. I've heard that it's not a hot manure. I don't know that for sure, but if you want to buy insect frass, you can go online and buy it. I think it's somewhere between $12 and $19 for a 2-pound box. Or you can go to Rainbow Mealworms and you can pick up a 40-pound bag or 2 for free. If you have a fish pond and you clean the filters on your fish pond regularly, that's a nice activator for your compost. So keep that in mind. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was the mushroom compost. I used to always go down to Escondido, to the Mountain Meadow Mushroom Farm on North Broadway in Escondido. And they they used to only grow button mushrooms, the little round button mushrooms. Now they've expanded a bit. But the substrate that they grow the mushrooms on is, they call it compost. It's not totally composted, but it's an excellent addition to your compost, or you can use it directly as a bedding material in your raised beds. And there's a mountain of it. I would check ahead before I go down, because sometimes They have agreements with landscape companies, and they will come in and they'll just pick up great, huge truckloads of it. So there may not be a lot left. But anytime I've been there, it's a constant stream of people coming in and out and in and out and in and out. You can go online and you can read about what they use in their substrate for their mushrooms. It's hay and manure and I think alfalfa meal and a number of other things. Of course, anytime you grow mushrooms, the material that they grow the mushrooms on it's a sterile medium. So they take these big, huge beds and they put them in it's an actual building, and they close it all up and they heat it up and it's pasteurized so that there are no weed seeds and it's a clean material. And after they harvest the mushrooms off it, then they may make 1 or 2 passes over the mushrooms, and then they put it out and they start with new material. So it's a constant. They're open Monday through Saturday. They used to be open 7 days a week. I think they're closed now on Sundays, but they run their operations 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They are online and you can go on and read about them. But Escondido's a little far now that the gas costs $5 or more a gallon. And it's 100 miles from my house. So it takes a good 2 hours to get down there. In addition to the gas, even though my car gets good mileage.
Left credit card
Still
charge.
gallons of gas to get there. So a friend of mine was telling me that she has found a place in Los Angeles, and it's called Smallhold, and they grow different kinds of mushrooms. They don't grow, I don't know if they grow button mushrooms or not, but they grow oyster mushrooms, and they grow lion's mane mushrooms, and they grow those king mushrooms that are there, among other things. And she was telling me about it, and I asked her for the information. I called them up, and I found out that they make their spent mushroom substrate available. Those are called blocks. Let me walk down there. This is what the mushrooms are grown on. They're called blocks. And the basis of the material is sawdust and cottonseed. And I don't know if there's something else in there as well, but I know it's mostly sawdust and cottonseed. And they grow their mushrooms. And after they've grown or gone over the blocks a couple of times and harvested, and they're ready to start a new batch, then they put these aside. And you can go in and pick them up. They're free. And some of them are not finished fruiting. As you can see here, these are the king mushrooms, and these are I think these are called black oysters or black pearl oysters. They're edible. I just had some for breakfast. They tasted good. And they're available for pickup. I probably had 30 or 40 in my car. I have enough that many of you will be able to take one home. I don't know if I have enough for everybody here. But what I like to do with the substrate when I'm ready to use it is I break it down, just crumble it up. And this is what it's like when it's crumbled. So you can come up and take a look at that. Again, it's all free. I think it makes a great mulch. And it also, I was reading that oyster mushrooms are used as a remediation application to soil that needs to be remediated. So I think it would be a good addition to your garden beds, as well as a good addition to your compost pile. Now, as we talked about, You might need buckets when you're going to go and pick up grains, or if you're going to go to the stable and pick up stuff. What I like to do with the stables is I load up my bucket and then I pour it from the bucket into a bag, and then I can pack more in my car that way. I do the same thing at the mushroom place that's down in Escondido, because that's all loose material. Up here in Vernon, they come in these blocks, so that's easier to transport that way. But a good place to get buckets is at your supermarket. Go to the bakery department. I also mentioned coffee shops. Donut shops, because they get a lot of their filling materials for their donuts, and the bakery departments at the supermarkets get a lot of their icings in buckets. That's a small one there, but a lot of them are full 5-gallon buckets. One thing I will mention about the buckets, they mostly have plastic handles. And after a while, the handles wear out. If you're lucky and you know somebody who has an Asian restaurant, or any kind of a restaurant where they use buckets, a lot of those buckets come with metal handles, and they're a little sturdier. But another thing that I think is important is that all of these buckets that come from the bakeries or from the coffee shops or the restaurants, they're all food grade, so you don't have to worry about anything leaching out of your plastic that would be harmful to you. Another thing that you might find useful if you're trying to cover an area with wood chips or mulch, you might want to have cardboard to put underneath your mulch to help keep the weeds down. And I think the best place to get cardboard is Costco, because they have these great big huge sheets of cardboard. There's no tape on them. There's no printing on them. They use them to divide their pallets. And you can go through there in a half an hour and you can find a dozen or two and just load them up on your cart and take them, because they're all free. Another thing that you might, now that you're thinking about compost, you might want to have a compost pile, but you don't have one, and you don't know where to get one, or you don't want to pay a lot of money. Check with your local municipality, your city, your county. My city of Long Beach sells compost bins that retail for about $40 online. My favorite, it's called a Geo bin, and it's just a round plastic, really easy to use, and they sell them for $15. I was going to try and get one to bring tonight that we could raffle off, but unfortunately, because of the way shipping is all delayed and it's hard to get materials sometimes, they're all out, so they didn't have any. But check with your local recycle department at your city or your county. Another thing that they make available at a really reasonable price is worm bins. If you want to start a worm bin and you don't know where to get one, or you don't want to pay the expensive $100 that many of them cost, check with your local recycling and municipality. So that pretty much covers it. If there are any questions, I'll take questions.
You had mentioned the brassica seems to help with growth. Brassicas.
I think brassicas, they break down really fast and they seem to. I think brassicas break down really fast and they seem to stimulate the microbes in the soil.
I was going to mention that the Soviets used to use something called brassinosteroids, and you can find them in some fertilizers, and they really kickstart a lot of plants. Brassinosteroids. And I had to look it up. They come from Brassica. So I never knew the origin, but when you mentioned that, I thought they were related, and it turns out that's where it comes from. So Brassica is a really powerful plant.
I think there's a lot of sulfur in brassicas. That's just my own thought.
I have a question. I don't have room for a compost bin, but can you take all of these items and just mix it in your garden bed?
Yes, you can. Or you could get like just a regular $10 or $15 bin that you would buy at Home Depot or Lowe's, you know, just it's about around the old fashioned kind of trash bins, and you could do it in there. Punch a few holes in the bottom and then do that. Compost will compost no matter what. It's nice if you can have a 3 by 3 by 3 pile, but it's going to break down no matter what you do. If you turn it, it'll break down. If you don't, it'll break down. It'll just take longer. If you cut your materials up really small, it breaks down really fast. And if you don't, it'll still break down. It just will take longer.
Yeah, I had actually two questions. The first one was, are you concerned about from the manure, the contaminants in the manure? Contaminants in the manure because they're organic? I mean,
I am not concerned with it, but if that's something that is of concern to you, then you'd have to make your own decision about using it. I've not had a problem, but I mean, that's just my experience. Is there another one?
also, just recently I read that cottonseed meal acts as a pre-emergent. And I was wondering if that was something you think about when you put the ingredients in your compost.
I don't know. Again, I have with the mushrooms, I've not had a chance to work with them very long. I just got the first batch maybe a month and a half ago. So I've not had a lot of experience with that. Another thing you might want to use your own, make your own decision about, use your discretion, is that some hay and some plants are treated with a, I don't know if it's the same as the pre-emergent, or they're treated with another, what would you call it? It's, I couldn't hear. Herbicide, yes. That the horses can eat, and it doesn't hurt the horses, but it goes completely through them. So that's something that you might want to check if you get a big load of horse manure. You might want to test it. Try growing something like beans that are very fast growing and see if that slows down or keeps them from sprouting. That's something that you might have to, you have to make your own decision about.
Thank you. I must say, I love that everything you talked about is free. So, you know, knowing where to go for free stuff. I bought this concoction from Home Depot, the one that turns around. So is that something you recommend? I just started about 2 weeks ago, just for kitchen waste.
I'm not familiar with that because I have not done it. I used to have a great, huge composter that turned. I mean, it was a gigantic thing, and I did get rid of that because it just was, it was too much for me to turn. I had to turn it 7 times for the roller to make one circle, and you were supposed to do that 5 or 6 times a day. And well, when you see the compost and it looks dark and it smells like the forest floor, and it's kind of crumbly, that would be good. Then you're probably about there.
I get a lot of my containers with lids from my swimming pool guy.
when he's done, he gets a lot of containers because he manages many pools. And so the chlorine buckets are very good. They're 40 pounds, they're big, they have lids, and they're free.
My only concern there would be the chemicals that were in it. No?
Chlorine evaporates in the sun. Yeah, these are chlorine tablets or pellets. So if you rinse it, if you leave it open, it'll evaporate. I have to put lots of chlorine in the pool and it evaporates every week. So it's not really going to do anything.
Okay, well, there you go. Chlorine buckets from the pool people. Any other questions or comments? I do have, as I said, I have a bunch of the mushroom blocks out in the car that you can pick up after the meeting. I also have that big 40-pound bag of insect frass, and you'll be able to pick some of that up if you like. Take it home and test it and play with it and see what you think. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Jeff.
Thank you so much, Martha. That was a great talk. Okay, well, we actually got done a little earlier than usual, so we have time for our social aspects right now. We brought this meeting. What's that? Oh. Well, go ahead and invite them.
Okay, I want to invite everybody. What? Okay, I am Nohat Sabah, and basically I want to get to know everybody on a personal level. So I'm inviting everybody to come over. We're going to do it like a potluck because I don't know how many people are going to show up. So bring your own food, your own snacks, your own drink, a bathing suit if you like to swim. I have a pool and a jacuzzi, so let's get together and have a good time. September 10th from noontime, I'm opening it up the rest of the day. So, and I will send you my address. It's 4182 Marianda Lane in Yorba Linda. Okay?
All right, thanks, Nohad. Yeah, whether we make that an official event for the club or not, is there's some legal things we have to work out, so we haven't discussed that yet. So there's insurance issues and things. So for right now, it's just a personal invitation. If we're able to make it more formal, we'll send it out in the newsletter with the address and everything, so everybody has that, in case you didn't write that down instantly. So we're trying to get back to our tastings after thing and raffle. So we want to talk about. Oh, sorry, opportunity drawing, or what do you want to call it, free door prize, or whatever we want to call it. Did you already give out the tickets? Okay, can I get one? Oh, you got one, okay. Okay, the opportunity drawing for legal reasons, but we use raffle tickets. So we have donations tonight, a panache fig, well, anyway, so you're gonna get to pick what you want. So whoever gets it first goes back. If you haven't looked at them, there's a panache fig, there's a purple passion fruit right out of Dawn's garden. We've got a grafted cherimoya, a coffee plant, both from Denny, and then Jean brought in a couple papayas from their seedlings, aren't they? What type of Hawaiian papayas? Okay, that's great. We also have some cuttings of sugarcane on the table and some samples of fertilizer. So whoever wins it first just goes back and grabs what you want, one item for yourself. Okay. Okay.
Sabor, cherimoya. Denny Luby grafted it. Okay, no, and so there are 15 selections today. Did you want to say goodbye to people on Zoom?
Go ahead and do that. All right, well, this was kind of boring for people on Zoom, so thank you for joining us tonight, and we're going to say goodnight.
Good
So
night.
see you next month.